Imagine yourself as a young sculpting prodigy. However, you don't have money to sculpt. You can barely even cover your monthly rent. You learned to sculpt early in your schooling career, but really refined your talents and shined when you took a ceramics class your freshman year of high school. Now out of school, you find yourself in a predicament, not making enough income to be able to use your talents. You begin to sneak into the high school where you truly began your sculpting journey, and you sculpt that night using the school's clay wheels. Now, you craft some of the most beautiful pots and vases that have ever existed, but the school eventually catches you one night. They claim that because you use their resources, they own your creations and can take credit for them and deserve the profit. While you probably should be indebted to the school and probably should apologize and repay them for the resources you used, you are the artist behind the work. The school did not make the clay structures, you did. I'd like to introduce all of you to Ricardo. Ricardo lives in a nice neighborhood with his aunt in a house they inherited. They are not poor, but do have to scrape by at times and watch expenses. Ricardo is a very talented computer programmer and studies it at his local community college. That being said, Ricardo can't develop his programs at home due to Wi-Fi limitations. One day, he's introduced to a neighbor who's wealthy and just so happens to have a really strong Wi-Fi signal. Using his skills, he hacks the Wi-Fi signal and conservatively uses it, making sure to use it at times during the day when he knows his neighbor isn't, and only uses it to develop the product he's working on. After working hard on the new program, Ricardo hits the jackpot through the creation of a new mobile game. Then his neighbor, Mr. Felix, finds out he was using his Wi-Fi and is trying to claim rights to the game because it was created on his network. The question is, should Ricardo own full rights to the game, or does the neighbor deserve a majority stake in the game as well? Now, let's think, did Ricardo really do anything wrong or malicious here, and should he be touted as the true creator? I'm going to hit on a few points to make a case for Ricardo. I'm going to touch on the legality of the situation, the intended use of his neighbor's network, and what it means to make a creation, what it means to be a creator. These points will allow me to arrive at the conclusion that yes, Ricardo owns 100% of the game because he made it, and use of a non-tangible resources provided by somebody doesn't necessarily warrant creation. Let's get into the legality of the issue first. Laws vary state by state, but hacking into somebody's Wi-Fi network is illegal in the United States according to the U.S. Laws and Regulations site. That being said, the law is rarely enforced and the severity of the crime/harm it causes others is extremely minimal. Ricardo didn't break into his neighbor's house, inhibit his neighbor's Wi-Fi use, or do any of those things. He quite literally caused his neighbor no harm. Yes, he technically broke the law, but he didn't hurt his neighbor in any real way. Additionally, Ricardo's intentions were for the most part pure. He did nothing illegal over the network, using it solely for the production of his game. Personally, I wouldn't really care if somebody used my network for clean purposes as long as they don't impact my Wi-Fi use. Go ahead, open it up to everyone. They aren't impacting me, so why should I really care? Lastly, let's touch on the creation issue. I'm going to return to the sculpting example for a minute, and while the sculptor and Ricardo's situation are different, mainly because of physical trespassing and stealing tangible materials, at the end of the day, the artist remains the artist whether he did something wrong or not. I think it's a no-brainer here that this product is truly Ricardo's. He put in the work, he created it, and he used Wi-Fi. It's not a resource like clay to create it. You can't use up all of the Wi-Fi to create something. You can use up all the clay, but that's not the case here. The neighbor provided a resource that people can find really everywhere, but it was convenient for Ricardo to use because of location. Now, I'm going to take this one step further, and Dr. Martin Reglitz of the University of Birmingham, an ethics professor, conducted a study on internet access. And the study led him to claim that, quote, internet access is no luxury, but instead a moral human right, and everyone should have unmonitored and uncensored access to this global medium, provided free of charge for those unable to afford it, end quote. Ricardo shouldn't have to deal with this problem in the first place if it's a human right to have Wi-Fi. In fact, there are already cities across America, such as Amherst, Massachusetts, that have free Wi-Fi for everybody to use. Is utilizing a resource like this really that serious? I don't think so. And to be completely honest, any neighbor complaining about this just isn't being a very good neighbor. At the end of the day, Ricardo did do something legal. I get that. His neighbor does pay for the Wi-Fi. I also get that. And Ricardo should have asked before using. Was the creation possible without the Wi-Fi? Not really. Ricardo could have made it on different Wi-Fi, but he ultimately didn't. Acknowledging this, I do think Ricardo should at least repay his neighbor for the Wi-Fi used, maybe get him something nice as a thank you for allowing him to use it. His decisions shouldn't necessarily go consequence-free, so to say, but it shouldn't result in his neighbor owning a majority stake or Ricardo going to prison. If the deal makes Ricardo a millionaire, buy the neighbor a sports car or something. Do something to show your appreciation. Yes, Ricardo broke the law, but he really didn't do anything extremely wrong. At the end of the day, he was the one who made the program and not his neighbor. Ricardo should do something for his neighbor, but his neighbor most certainly does not own the company or shouldn't deserve a majority stake. Imagine you created an amazing product, but somebody else took credit for it. In my eyes, the severity of the situation is minimal, and the more important issue at hand here is that an artist is recognized and commended for their work. Ricardo put in hard work and didn't harm anyone in the process, so in my opinion, he deserves to reap the benefits.